All right, loves. So I feel really good right now. I was gonna wait and record this tomorrow, but I just finished a photo shoot. I just ate a bomb ass burrito, and so I'm just kind of like in a creative flow. I see you see I got my sketch pad. I've been drawing this weekend. This week. It's not the weekend yet. Um, so I am excited to record. So here I am. Um, Today's podcast is going to be about triggers. Um, so I'm going to talk about my experience with them and what I've learned from them. So triggers necessary for treatment. That's the kind of the topic we're going for today. Make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that little bell. Um, and we're going to dive in. I should have put some chapstick on. I was just so excited. Um, I'm so excited. Like, I was like, you know what? I could do my homework right now. I really could, but I'm putting shea butter on. I'm like, I really could, but I don't wanna. I am gonna do it. It was either the homework was either gonna get done today, and I was gonna podcast tomorrow, or the podcasting was gonna happen tonight, and the homework was gonna get done tomorrow because I'm almost done, y'all. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. I wrote a lovely note because I did it after my therapy session. It was really thought out and really detailed on my phone. But I don't want to read to you guys, not to mention it's on my phone and I'm using my phone to record. So I did make some bullet points. I'm hoping that it's as powerful as it felt in my notes. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm probably gonna take this off in a little bit because I'm gonna get hot. But yeah, so let me get comfortable so I can not have so much fidgeting going on when I'm actually getting into it. It's so cozy in here. I come on now. I decorated, like I have my paintings up. I have my vision board up. My vision board is huge. I'm gonna have to show that to you guys one day. I have my art supplies in here now. Got this up. I've had this for over 5 years. So like I feel so comfortable in here. Like when I come in here, it's just good vibes. Okay, so let's get into it. Um, so I remember thinking that my whoever my partner was, they needed to know every trigger. They needed to know every trigger. They needed to know my background because I wanted to make sure that they knew how to handle me, right? I wanted to make sure that they wouldn't trigger me and things like that. And so I remember doing this heavily in my relationships. And as I've been healing, I've learned that it's not on the other person. It's not on the other person to walk around eggshells around you. And honestly, when people do that, you feel shitty. Because you feel like you'll break if they touch you because that's how they're treating you. Um, it's not their job to walk on eggshells around you, especially because a lot of people aren't gonna know that they're doing something that triggers you, especially because sometimes your triggers are like the littlest things. Like I told y'all, my son walking up close behind me is a trigger for me. It sets me off. My skin crawls. But to him, it's just a little game. And I've worked with kids before for years, and kids don't know that. You know what I mean? So it's not the responsibility of the other person to know all these things about you. Not to mention, we probably do things that trigger other people without knowing it. So, what is their responsibility? It's good for them to know if there's someone that you love and care about, someone that's in your life ongoing. It's good for them to know, just to know you, just to know why you react to things in certain ways. But it's your responsibility to handle yourself in a certain way when you are triggered. Your responsibility to move yourself through that and calm yourself back down. It's your responsibility to recenter yourself and realize that you are not where you were. Triggers are the next topic is avoiding them, right? We want to avoid them because they're uncomfortable and they bring us right back to where we were. Our bodies like literally feel like we're back in that triggered state, in the thing that triggered, that traumatic state, so we feel like it just happened to us. Whatever was traumatizing, we feel like it just happened. And but that's not true. We're not there anymore. And we are in a space where we can now protect ourselves and we can stand up for ourselves and we have a voice. And I'm speaking more so to those who have childhood trauma. I can really only speak for childhood trauma right now. When I get my degree, I'll be more well versed. But for me, with childhood trauma, that's what I've worked through. That's what I've worked with my therapist with. That's what I've studied. Um, so we want to run away from them because it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable. We're reliving a situation that was traumatic, and so we want to run, and we think that avoiding triggers is good for us, but it's not. Um, when we Oh, I wish I knew what that. I can't remember what it's called. I'm gonna have to do that in another video. But there's a therapy where they sit with you as you relive the trauma so that they can work with you through it. Because the thing is, the more you're triggered and you learn how to work through it, the less power it has over you. Because yes, the memories are gonna be there. Your body's gonna remember that shit. It's gonna be there, but you learn how to work through it. You learn how to calm yourself through it. You learn how to figure out what's the connection. So if you're triggered by something in front of you, your response may be a response that was, let's use the word appropriate for what happened to you in the past, but it may not be appropriate for what's happening right now. So for example, I have trust issues, right? I have trust issues because, let's say, well, I'm gonna let's say one of my parents is their love was very manipulative. It always, anytime I felt like I was getting any nurturing or positive feedback, there was usually something that they needed at the end of that. And so now when I run across people, if there's any type of, it could be a joke or whatever. If there's the slightest manipulation, I'm like, I don't want anything to do with you. And sometimes it's not that extreme. You know what I mean? I even have issues sometimes with surprises. Surprises, you kind of sometimes you gotta lie. You do. Sometimes you gotta lie to make sure the surprise actually happens. But that shit irritates me because I'm like, well, if you can lie about that, what else can you lie about? But those trust issues are all from there. That's my response because I couldn't trust the love of that parent. I couldn't trust their actions. If you're being manipulative and you're being nice and I'm feeling good because you're being nice and nurturing and I feel great, and then smack, okay, now this is what I need from you. Like, damn. So any type of like lie or manipulation, for me, sometimes that's my response. Cut them off. I'm cutting them off because I don't know if I could trust them or not. And sometimes it's not that deep. So it's basically, it's connecting, it's figuring out if what's happening in front of you, what's triggering you, is it, giving it the appropriate response, response. So um if someone was trying to surprise me and I was like, so when I said such and such and you lied, like, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to be like, I'm done with you. Like, this person just surprised me. Like, they just put together a whole like beautiful surprise. You know what I mean? So for me to cut them off because they lie, like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's not the appropriate response. So it's connecting what's going on in front of you with what happened. So it's really learning. It's like the more you learn about yourself and your trigger, it's easier for you to work through it and connect it and decide what you want to do. So one of the biggest things that I've learned is one, everything doesn't need an immediate response. Two, if you are triggered and you need to take some time, some space to gather yourself to do all of this, do it. You have to do what's best for you, even if it seems not normal. Like if you're triggered, excuse me, if you're triggered in a public setting, it doesn't make sense for you to still sit there all flustered. Say, I need some time. I need to take it. I'll be back. Take some time for yourself, gather yourself, calm yourself back down and then revisit them. You don't even need to know, you don't even need to connect the dots at that time. If you need to do that at a later time, you do that at a later time. So I'm gonna give you an example. I was in a meeting and I was triggered. It was a virtual meeting, but I was triggered. I turned my camera off. I was already on mute. Turned my camera off. I allowed myself to cry, and I got through the rest of the meeting. Then after that, the kids are coming. Okay. Yeah, I'm okay, Mama. I'm doing a video. You can come back when I'm done, okay? I promise. I love you. So after the video call was over, I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. I cry my way through stuff. I used to avoid crying like so much. So I cried my way through it, and then I went on a walk and I did an audio journal. I wanted to vent so bad, but there's only a handful of people that I trust with venting. Because, well, many reasons. I think I talked about it in the last video, but there's venting is very sometimes it's something that we just got so used to doing, like we just be venting, like we be on Facebook, you know what I mean? But it's something that's so vulnerable, and it's something that if you vent to the wrong person, you can be misguided completely because you're in a vulnerable state. And at that time, sometimes you don't trust your own judgment, so you take the judgment of somebody you do trust, in place of yours. And so it's very there's you should just have a short list of people you've been to. Let's just say that. So I couldn't get a hold of any of the people that I vent to. And so I vented to myself, and I was able to connect. I was able to connect that. So I cried, right? I'm crying because I felt like my voice wasn't being heard, right? As a child, my voice wasn't heard. I spoke up for myself. I told my parent what was happening to me, and nothing was done to protect me. It actually kept happening. And so after that, I just felt like my voice did not matter. Then I would have interactions with other family members, and sometimes I would be talked over or ignored. And that just further made me feel like I was more invisible, right? So in this meeting, they don't know that. They don't know none of that stuff. They don't, and they shouldn't have to tiptoe around because I had a childhood like that. You know what I mean? So it's more so, one, was my reaction appropriate? No. But of course, my feelings are still valid, but my feelings were attached to the past and not the present. Now, sometimes the feelings may not be appropriate. I really don't like the word appropriate. I can't think of the other word that I would put in that place. Um, because your feelings are valid, whether you feeling them for the past or the present, they valid, honey. But we just using that word for now, okay, until I figure out the one that I want to use. So my feelings were not appropriate for that situation, but they did tell me something. The trigger still gave me some information that I needed to know. One, the information that I needed to know at that time was a boundary that I needed to place, because I felt in, how do I say it? I just know, like, after I did the reflection, after I went on my walk, I went on a walk, y'all. I'm glad that I live in a safe environment because it was dark. I went on a walk and I vented. And when I got to the bottom of it, I was like, okay, I need a boundary around time. I did feel like my voice wasn't being heard, but I had to reassure myself. That's the other thing, is reassurance. I had to reassure myself because I know that my voice is heard. I witness it. I witness um the input that I give being um played out. I get feedback from my supervisor, like, so I know that my voice matters. So it was the trigger, right? But there was still a boundary. So you have to do that self-reflection, and it does take time. And that's why I say, if you are feeling triggered and you haven't gotten to a point where you can move through the feeling, you can take space to move through the feeling. But that doesn't mean that you're always avoiding these things. You know what I mean? I I feel like you need to find a safe space. Um, like, okay, let me give you another example. I I get triggered if I don't see a touch coming. So, like, my kids are running around the house. If they touch me and I didn't even feel it coming or I didn't see it coming, like, my skin crawls. My skin crawls. And so I was in a modeling class and we were doing posing. And our what we were supposed to do was to stand still as the model poses around us, and then we would flip and do the same thing, and then we would pose together. So that was the practice, right? So I'm standing still and um I'm practicing with a male model, and we're looking in the mirror so I can see him. But one time I just happened to look down and I didn't see the touch before the touch happened, and I got triggered. But because of the work that I've been doing, I was able to stay present, right? So I'm like, one, I know this is a safe environment. I felt safe here before. We've been vulnerable with each other. We open up with each other. Two, I know that he's not trying to touch me inappropriately. Like, we're literally doing a model practice. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, there was a lot of, like, okay, like, let's be real. Okay, what's really going on? You know what I mean? So I was able to stay present and not let it disrupt me. And then I was able to model around him. And it worked out fine. So it's those little things. There's little things that you can start doing. So if you're in a safe environment, it makes it a little bit easier for you to move through those triggers. But also, if you know what triggers you, like, if you know, like I said, I know if I don't see the touch coming, I'm going to get triggered. So I know that's something that triggers me. So it's something that I'm aware of. So it's getting to know your triggers and getting to know how to reassure yourself and getting to know how to calm yourself down. And it's hard. It's hard. I know, like, I'm saying it like, yeah, this is all you have to do. No, honey, it took me a while. It did. But I just want to encourage you to not keep running from your triggers. You have to feel through it. And that's why I said it helps to be in a safe environment, to be able to feel through it, to be able to be like, I just need a break and then I'm gonna come back. Because the thing is, I mean, you there's a possibility you're still gonna get triggered again. Like I said, we did that. I had two partners that day. Um, and like I said, I didn't get triggered the first time, and it did just so happen to be a woman, but I also kept an eye in that mirror on everything she did. So triggers do hit me harder when they are male, but I do still get triggered by females. Like, it's just the trigger. And that's the other thing. As we heal and grow, like, certain things will reveal themselves. And so it's triggers are tricky, and that's why it helps for you to learn to feel through your feelings, and learn to try to connect them. So then that way, you know, how to work through it. And, like, as I'm saying this, I feel bad because, like I said, I'm a therapy fanatic. I love my therapist. Um, I like in my spare time, I like look up psychology stuff. I'm a psych major. And some people um, don't have that. So experiencing a trigger might be very intense because I remember when I used to experience them. And I know that there's people that I talk to that have experienced them and they don't know how to work through them, and so they result to alcohol and other things. um so I understand. I have been there. I'm just not there anymore. And I can't even say that because like I said, I still very much get triggered. I've just learned to know what works for me. And the only way I learned that is by experiencing them. There's really no other way to learn how to work through something if you're not experiencing it. You know what I mean? Um, so I'm going to share some ways that I soothe. Um, I'm gonna so yeah. I was like trying to make sure that I covered everything that it was in my notes because my notes were so good. Like when after I do therapy, like I do a mini therapy session on myself, and so the notes were good. Maybe I'll just put the notes. I'll put the notes in the description. So because I'm a writer. Well, I'm a poet. Let's say that. And so sometimes when I write, just stuff flows out of me, and I feel like that was better than what I said, or maybe it was more spelled out. I don't know. Either way it goes, they'll be in the description because I want y'all to hear it. Um, so for me, what helps me soothe, for one, is crying. And I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with crying. And some people are even uncomfortable seeing other people crying. And that's a you problem usually. I'm just saying. Um, so I cry. Um, I used to feel weak when I cried, and now I find it empowering because after I cry, there's so much clarity. After I cry, I have the answer. Either I have the answer or I have the release. So I don't need to find an answer because I already feel good. Um, and no, it doesn't change the situation, but your body feels weightless. I cry. That's all I'm gonna say. Cry, 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 cry. Cry. Um, so crying helps getting active. So moving, um, walking, running, dancing. Um, it's usually walking and dancing for me. Oh, it's such a release. Like I'm able to really, like I said, I'm really able to clear my mind. Journaling helps for sure. I've really grown out of writing though. I feel like so I have this problem with speed. um like I try to rush through my healing. It's annoying, I know. It's annoying for me because even though I know that it takes time, I know that there's no rush, I know that just because I heal doesn't mean I'm going to find someone, I know that my healing is a lifelong process, I know all these things, but I still find myself rushing. But anyways, I used to journal like writing. Now I'm more of an audio journaler. Unless it's really intense, then I need to feel that release of me writing. Um, but those audio journals, like sometimes hearing yourself say stuff and like a trigger can sound, it can sound dumb. Like I've gotten triggered before for being left on red because I felt ignored, right? Because I felt invisible, because that's all connected to my childhood, because I was neglected, right? So I've gotten triggered from being left on red. And that sounds crazy. And so when I say stuff out loud to me, it's usually easier for me to be like, okay, girl, that is not a present problem. That was a past problem for sure. Like you got left on red and you know what I mean? And it's not like I'm picking on myself. It's just sometimes when you say stuff out loud, you're able to really hear how it sounds. You're really able to hear where the pain is coming from. And you're really able to connect it more. It's not picking on yourself, it's just recognizing, it's being more aware. And sometimes you cannot do that process with someone else because they'll sometimes they hype you up. well, such and such shouldn't have left you on red. Leave them on red then. Like, you know what I mean? Then you beefing about nothing. Like at that point, you know? So it's really, like I said, audio journaling and journaling are very helpful, especially when you feel triggered, because it really helps you get to the root of it. You are the one, you know yourself, you know your history. You know yourself, you know your history. So you're going to be the one who's able to connect what you're feeling in the present to the past to know how you need to move forward. It is on you. And I know that sounds scary as fuck, but it's weightlifting. It's like a release, because when I carried the opinions of the people that I loved and they didn't line up with my own opinion, it was like, well, shit, what do I do? Like, you know what I mean? And to somebody else, it's like, well, duh, follow your own advice. But it was just like, it was hard to figure that out, especially being a people pleaser in being the past people pleaser. That was hard. But now that I just rely on my audio journals, and if something's extremely difficult, like I said, I have a handful of people, my therapist included. It's literally a handful. It's probably like 5 people, and that's like I said, including my therapist, that I can go to for advice about certain things. And it's really, really good to have that. Because is this on? Okay, it is. I'm sorry, y'all, but I was like, damn, what if I record all this and the audio is off? I test it, but I was so excited that I didn't. But yeah, so what was I saying? Journaling is very beneficial because it helps you hear your own voice. Your voice matters. Your voice is the root. Your voice is going to give you the answer. So like I say, it's okay to talk to yourself. It is okay. I'm gonna put that on a shirt. That's gonna be one of the podcast shirts. It's okay to talk to yourself. Okay. So I walk, I journal, I cry, I get active, and then I journal. Or sometimes I do them all at the same time. I cry while I walk, while I vent. What else? Grounding helps a lot. I'm so sad that I don't have a safe grounding spot right now. I'm thinking about buying a patch of grass just to put on my damn balcony, because it's almost instant. You almost instantly feel grounded when you put your feet in grass. And I've talked about this before, how like people used to be like, she needs to touch some grass. And I was like, what the hell is that all about? Because it's grounding. So they're basically implying that the person is like wilding out and they need to touch some grass so they can calm the fuck down. And it's just so funny to say. But but it's real. It's almost instant. I used to walk to my neighborhood park, and then I would take my shoes off when I got to the park, my shoes and socks, and I would walk in the cold grass, and I would just feel so relaxed, and then I would stretch, and then I would sit and look at the water, and it was just so grounding. Like everything, I don't want to say everything melted away because that's not entirely true, but I knew that I still had stressful things happening in my life, but I wasn't actively stressed about them. And so it works with triggers too, because when you're triggered, like I said, your mind and body goes right back to your trauma. Grounding brings you back to the present. It helps you just be where you are, because you are not experiencing that trauma anymore. You survived, honey. You are a survivor, and you are here, and you survived for a reason. So I need you to fight and feel through these triggers so you can be stronger, so that when they come to you, you can connect them a little bit faster each time and move through them, so they won't have that power over you anymore. And that's how you live a fulfilled life. You don't let the triggers have power over you because you're not in that traumatic situation anymore. You have overcome. You are powerful. Look at you. You are alive and breathing and well. And you may not always feel like it, and that is okay. They say healing is not linear, and honey, it ain't. And sometimes, like, there's another post, and they say healing looks like this. And so on one day, they're up and they're running around, they're doing stuff. Another day, they laying in the bed. Other day, they like on the couch watching TV. Like, healing is not going to be the same thing. Sometimes I don't want to get out of bed, but I'm perfectly fine. I don't want to say perfectly, but sometimes healing for me is laying under my weighted blanket with my heating pad and watching a show or watching YouTube. Um, and sometimes healing for me is running on the treadmill, going on a long walk, dancing around my living room. Sometimes, man, the dance with the clean combo, that's healing for me. Sometimes that's healing because I'm cleaning my space physically, but as I'm dancing, I'm clearing my mind mentally. Um, and so that's the other thing that helps is when you start putting in these other self-care practices, when you get triggered, its impact isn't as strong. And so I do try to keep some sort of routine. I may not always do everything, but I'm at least doing 2 or 3 things every day that benefit my mental health. Whether that's journaling, dancing, drinking certain teas, writing, doing some sort of art, um, just there's a variety of things that you could be doing that benefit your mental health, and in the long run it benefits you when you're triggered because you get to learn what calms you down, you get to learn what grounds you, and so that is stuff that can be applied when you're triggered, and also it's just the other thing about not avoiding triggers is you get to learn what sets you off. Because if you're aware of what's going on, if you think about what happened just before you felt triggered, you're able to learn what triggers you. And it does really help because it helps you connect it to what it caused that pain, what caused that discomfort in your body in the past, so you can really know how to respond in the present. Because sometimes you may get triggered and it does require that same response from back then, but most of the time it doesn't. So you need to know, the more you get to know yourself, the more you get to know your triggers, you get to know what response is needed in the present. Do I need to set a boundary? Do I need to say, hey, look, that made me uncomfortable. I know you didn't know, but sometimes it's just putting it out there. Sometimes it's setting a boundary. Sometimes it's just for you to know, but you won't know until you start feeling those. So triggers are necessary for treatment. They help there. It's like a weight that you lift to make you stronger, to strengthen yourself against the trauma, because the trauma, it lives in your body, it lives in your mind, and unfortunately those are scars that are very, they don't go away, they heal, but there's still going to be a mark, um and so it's the key is to strengthen your mind and strengthen your connection with yourself, so then that way you can move through them without them holding you back, or without them. Sometimes the way you respond to the present thing may, negatively affect the relationship you have with the person in front of you, and you saying I was triggered is not an excuse for treating someone a certain way. Um and so that's why it's very important that we do this work, and that we get to know ourselves, and that we show ourselves this love. So then that way we're not going out and putting hurt on other people because we were triggered, or because, anything like that, because we're hurt, because we're healing. Because this is no excuse. Um, so I hope this was helpful. I do write stuff out so that it can be more organized, but I do also like um, I like more conversational. And so I hope that I can build a community that is okay with me rambling on because I do feel like it's still helpful. But I do hope that this was helpful to someone. And I want to remind you that you are worthy of treatment. You are worthy of healing. You are worthy of success. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of honesty. There are so many things that you are worthy of, that you were born worthy of, that we don't always feel from others. And that's why it has to come from within. It has to, it has to come from within. Your love has to come from within. And you don't have to prove your worth or your value to anyone. That includes like everybody, okay? Them parents, them kids, your significant other, your manager, your coworkers, all of them, okay? You don't gotta prove your worth to none of them. Okay? You are worthy, honey. But for real, I'm so serious. So I encourage you to do what you can to feel through your triggers. But I also am very aware that it is very intense and it is very hard, especially if you are doing it by yourself. So hopefully, if you cannot feel through your triggers, I will definitely be posting more videos on how to calm your body and on some of the ways I've learned to move through my fight or flight um, state. And so maybe for some of you, maybe you want to start there. Maybe you want to start on calming yourself when you're not triggered before you try to calm yourself when you are triggered. But these are definitely tools that you will be able to use when you're triggered. So just you know yourself. Like I say, you know yourself, you know your history, you know what you're ready for and what you're not ready for. I'm going to be speaking from a point of view where I'll talk about what I went through, excuse me, and I'll talk about where I'm at. But I'm also, like I said, I'm not licensed. I'm not your personal therapist. So I don't know what you specifically need. You know what you need. So you take what you can from what I give you and apply it. And I promise you, I'm going to share more stuff that is going to benefit you. I will definitely share how I calm myself down more in more detail than what I did here. Because I have experienced PTSD symptoms. I have experienced being um, my mood swings from PCOS. I get really irritable. Like I have experienced so much that I have had to learn so many different ways to calm myself down to use all at once. So sometimes it's aromatherapy while I'm walking, while I'm venting to myself. Like, you know what I mean? It's layers of things. But it sounds like a lot, but it becomes a part of your lifestyle. And before you know it, it's normal for you. And so I will share all of that stuff. And if there's anything that you want me to share right away, just let me know. Like message me. I think I'll put my Instagram on here somewhere. Um, but you can comment or in the comments, or you can message me. And I will give you an answer, but I will also make a video about it because, like I said, you know what you need. I can only speak from my experience and from what I've learned through my research and what I've learned from my therapist, but everything is tailored towards what I've been through and how I respond to my triggers and stuff. But there's definitely something here for you. It's just a matter of searching yourself to know how to apply it. So I really appreciate you for watching. And I'm proud of you for deciding to heal. It's hard. It's hard to look in the mirror. It's hard to look at what happened to you and learn to accept that. I'm telling you guys, I said it in the last video. I did not fully accept what happened to me until this year. And I've been healing through it all, but I didn't fully accept it until this year. And so it does take time. And so I'm here. I am here. And like I said, send me your questions and I will do my best to answer them. And whatever I cannot answer, I will research. Like I said, I speak to my therapist heavily. So I will find out. Or I will refer you to someone who does have the answer. But I do, my goal is to, I remember how I felt growing up. I remember being in high school, crying myself to sleep and not even knowing why the hell I was crying myself to sleep. And I remember that. I remember feeling miserable. I remember feeling worthless. I remember feeling like there was no purpose for me. And as I grew and as I've grown to love myself and as I fell in love with myself and I found my worth, I remember how I felt. And it's so sad to me that there are people today that are still doing that. And so my goal is to help as many people as I can move out of that. And I know that all I can do is give you the information and you have to apply it and you have to see what fits for you and how it fits for you and how you can apply it to your life. Um, but I can still share. I can share what happened to me. I can share how I've healed through it. I can share the advice that I've gotten from people that are trusted. And so, whatever I can do, whatever is in my ability, um, I will do. So, that is all. Remember that you are worthy always, and I will see you next time on Beautifully Imbalanced by Deshae Carter. Bye.